We all have that friend, right? Where we go out to eat with them, and when the food comes, you're not allowed to eat it yet because they have to take a picture first. And you're waiting and waiting for them to take that freaking picture, and by the time they're done, the food is cold. We all have that friend. I know because I'm that friend. I think food photography is actually one of the hardest yet most common things to shoot for social media. Unlike most other items, for example, if you're doing a flat lay, you have the option of moving that flat lay closer to the window. However, with food photography, it's typically happening in a restaurant. You're not gonna lift your whole table and move your table to better light, right? Because the two most important things when documenting food, one is the color, and two, it's the texture. Who wants to eat a blue salad, right? You want your salad to look pretty crispy green. And who wants to eat like a green looking orange, right? You want your oranges to look actually orange. So color accuracy is so important when shooting food. And if you're in a restaurant with really funky lighting or really funky wall colors, you're gonna get really funky colored lighting. But what do we do when the lighting sucks? I'm gonna show you 4 lighting tips today that's going to improve your food photography. To make the point, I have moved my food over to a less pretty light situation. So what do we do when there's not enough light or when the lighting sucks? Most of the time, we're stuck with turning on the iPhone flash, right? Let's take a photo with the flash on now. This is what it looks like with the built-in iPhone flash. We can make it better if we use an external light source instead. I like to use the Profoto C1 Plus. This is a strobe that actually syncs with your phone, so I can have studio lighting in the palm of my hand. I'm gonna use the continuous lighting feature right now so that I can demonstrate to you the effects of what this light does. And then we'll go into a little bit about the difference between when you can use flash and when to use continuous lighting. My first tip to you is you want to keep the light as close as possible to your subject. I want you to see what happens when the light is close to your subject versus when it's further away. And again, like I said, the 2 main things that I'm trying to achieve with food photography is color and texture. So you can notice what happens to the color too when the light source is closer versus when the light source is slightly further away. That's tip number 1. Keep your light source as close as possible to the subject to get the most beautiful contrast and colors in your food. Tip number 2, put your light source at a 45-degree angle to your subject. You know that to get texture, you want side lighting, right? So when we get this on the side, when we put our light source on the side, you're gonna see lots of texture, but it's not great for color, right? But what we love about the side lighting is that you're able to see lots of highlights and shadows. These highlights and shadows is what helps your eye perceive texture. But you can see it's not great for color. If you have it at a 90 degree, like coming straight on, this is great for color. Isn't it beautiful? But you also see 0 shadow. That could be good or bad. It's not great for texture though. If you're trying to show texture, you do want some highlights and shadows to show in order to see texture. So that's why I like the 45-degree angle, because the 45-degree angle gives me the best of both worlds. It gives me the beautiful color that I get from the 90 degree, but also the shadows and texture from the 0 degrees. Tip number 3. It's a very fancy tip, watch out. So I like to use a little bit of reflecting. The beauty about this paper towel is that it makes a really beautiful reflector. And most of the time, if you're at a restaurant or if you're at home, it's easily accessible, right? It's not hard to find something white that you can use to bounce light back. The purpose of this is to fill in some of the shadows. So let's say I have light coming from this way, right? And like I said, I like the 45-degree angle because you get the color and the texture, but maybe I don't want as much shadow. Maybe I want to fill in a little bit of the shadow. So you can see as I put the paper towel in, it gives just a little bit amount of fill to make the shadows not as harsh. Yep, so that's with the reflector and without the reflector. And you see it just gives that a little bit nice of a fill, makes it a little bit more even, and softens up the shadows. With just the 3 tips I've given you so far, you already have enough to create beautiful food photos now. Tip number 4, I'm gonna show you how you can spread the light. We're essentially gonna use what we've already created, but build on top of it. This represents either a big napkin, white napkin that my friend is holding up for me, a big white page in the menu, right? If you open up the menu, you'll probably have something nice, big and white like this. So rather than coming directly on like this, it is now gonna bounce off of here and spread. This is gonna fill the entire frame. So let's see how this works. I'm actually gonna point this light into this white bounce here. And again, this could be a menu, this could be a white napkin. I have my white reflector here to bounce the light back in here. So we're gonna create light in here that's just gonna go bouncing back and forth like that, filling up this entire space. All right, so let's give this a test shot and see how the light is. I love how beautiful that light is. These are the 4 tips that I utilize anytime I'm taking photos of food. And you can now implement these and get great food photography yourself as well. Tip number 1, bring your light as close as possible to the food as you can. This is gonna give you the best quality of light. Tip number 2, hold it at a 45-degree angle, right? So 45 degrees is gonna give you the best of both worlds, texture and color. Tip number 3, fill in the shadows with a reflector, whether it is a paper towel, a torn paper towel, or a white shirt or a white napkin. Anything big and white like a menu is a great reflector that's gonna help you bounce light back in and fill in those shadows. And tip number 4, spread the light as much as you can. Whenever you bounce the light, you're gonna get a larger spread and it's gonna fill in large areas better. So there you have it, 4 lighting tips that is going to instantly improve your food photography. That way you can still continue to be that friend that shoots all your food, but your friends will appreciate that the food will still remain hot.